It will give Florida courts temporary jurisdiction to intervene and halt procedures for out-of-state children. You have actually some states in this country that want to be a haven for these types of procedures.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Troy. Hey, listen, it's finally happened in Florida. Ron DeSantis has signed SB 254, which is a bill that basically outlaws gender reassignment surgery for minors in the state of Florida, makes that illegal. This bill is remarkably horrifying. It has a lot of vague language that could lead to a lot of unintended consequences. But the most striking thing about this is that it allows the state of Florida to temporarily take custody of trans children.
Several bills he calls the Let Kids Be Kids package.
There are 5 of them. Here's what they change. Gender transition treatments for minors are banned. Florida will have temporary emergency jurisdiction to halt procedures for kids from out of state. Children are banned from adult performances, including drag shows.
Meanwhile, students must use the bathroom based on their sex assigned at birth. The same applies to pronoun use in schools. And last year's parental rights and education law is now expanded through the 8th grade.
You have a movement amongst, I would say, rogue elements of the medical establishment to do things that is basically the mutilation of minors. I mean, they're trying to do sex change operations on minors, giving them things like puberty blockers and doing things that are irreversible to them. And that is not based on science. That is not based on evidence. In fact, you have had countries that have tried to do this in Europe, and they recognize this was very harmful. And so now they don't do it, places like Sweden. And yet here in the United States, you have a very, I would say, ideologically charged small group of folks within medicine that are really pushing these types of procedures on minors. We think that that is wrong. In Florida last year, we took action so that no physician that does those procedures are going to be able to keep their medical license. So that's gone if you do this, which is great. It will give Florida courts temporary jurisdiction to intervene and halt procedures for out-of-state children. You have actually some states in this country that want to be a haven for these types of procedures and even welcome minors without their parents' consent into some of their jurisdiction. We're obviously doing the opposite here.
The language is in the bill. It defines gender reaffirming care as serious physical harm, which is language in Florida that is essentially tantamount to child abuse, which would allow a child to be removed from their home. So children receiving gender-affirming care, it could be considered child abuse in the state of Florida, and those children could be temporarily removed from their home and taken into custody by the state. It also gives state courts the power to modify out-of-state custody agreements. So if you have a child with a parent in Florida and a parent in another state, it gives the Florida courts the power to take custody temporarily of that child in Florida, even if they're not from Florida. Theoretically, if you had parents split on whether or not a child should be receiving gender-affirming care in Florida, the parent that doesn't approve could sue under this law and be granted immediate custody of that child, citing the fact that, once again, Florida considers gender-affirming care to be causing serious physical harm to the child. That parent could cite that and be awarded custody of that child in Florida. This is absolutely horrifying. It's tantamount to kidnap by the state. It allows the state of Florida to take people's children away simply for seeking gender-affirming care. And let's be clear, gender-affirming care is anything from puberty blockers to unwanted body hair removal. If young girls receive body hair removal, that could be considered gender-affirming care. Many states have been enacting anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ laws over the past couple of years, but this is by far the most extreme. This is a horrifying law. He also signed a flurry of other laws mandating that people use the bathroom of the sex that they were born with. So even though a fully transitioned trans man must now use the woman's bathroom because they were born a woman, having sort of the opposite intended consequence of what these people think is going to happen. They're also forcing children to use pronouns. In public schools, they must use the pronouns associated with the sex when they were born. So talk about the party of small government. You now have the Republican government in Florida telling parents what health care they can provide their children, threatening to take children away from parents because of some culture war issues, threatening to kidnap children based on the healthcare decisions that parents and their doctors make with the children, with their minor children. You also have the government telling people what they are allowed to call themselves in terms of their pronouns. It's absolutely horrifying. And it's absolutely ridiculous that these people still consider themselves to be the party of small government. There is undoubtedly a lot of questions about the constitutionality of this law, but for now, Ron DeSantis has just made kidnapping legal in the state of Florida. This bill allows the state of Florida to take children away from their parents, allows for kidnapping, state-endorsed kidnapping in the state of Florida, simply for children who are receiving gender-affirming care, simply for minors who are transitioning to another gender. This punishes trans youth. This is part of an ongoing genocidal movement against the trans community in red states. And this is the most extreme law to date that we've seen as part of that genocidal effort against the trans community and the larger LGBT community as a whole. So we will keep an eye on this. Like I said, this does not seem to be constitutionally appropriate by any means. But for now, kidnapping is legal in the state of Florida. State-sponsored kidnapping. For MeidasTouch, this is Troy. Remember, smash that subscribe button to keep supporting independent media.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.